Hi, everyone. So welcome, Drafting Gurus. In our last class and over the last 2 weeks, we have been talking about the residuary. So what is the structure of the residuary inheriting, identifying that, and then learning where it is in Wealth Counsel and what the different options mean. So there are plenty of videos before this to review, but I just want to review with you what we went over real quick. I'm going to use my whiteboard to do that. And then I'm going to move into Wealth Counsel to cover one of the options that we haven't covered yet. So remember, the residuary of either a trust or a probate estate is what happens after all the specific distributions have been made. So my ring to my daughter, my knife collection to my son, not to be gender biased, my dog to stay with my children, all these specific things. Taxes, fees have been paid. The lump sum that is left over is the residuary after the grantor, if there's only one grantor, or both grantors have passed away. So we begin with the trust up here. We have joint or single. So we're going to use today Jane Doe and John Smith. This is the Doe Smith family. And we know that we are not yet talking about what happens first here. What happens first after the first spouse passes away, represented with this line here. Assets are going to be divided in some way between usually a marital and non-marital share. So we're not talking about what happens yet at this step down here. Okay, we're going to get to that trust structure later because frankly, it is a bit more complicated for a lot of you. Instead, we're going to move down here to what happens after Jane and John, the two grantors of the trust, Jane and John, the two people that created the trust, after they both pass away. So we have the first death here, the second death here, and then something has to happen with the assets that are moving down here. In this case, we are just pretending that Jane Doe and John have 3 children, Jack, Colin, and Juliet. And in this scenario, they're minors, but they could be adults, right? So we talked about the first option is there a common pot trust or no? A trust where all of the assets that, again, are in the residuary drop down and are held in one trust for the benefit of Jack, Colin, and Juliet until the youngest, we'll say that's Juliet is the youngest, turns a certain age, okay? And then after, if there is a common pot, after, there are several options of how Jack, Colin, and Juliet could inherit. But there doesn't have to be. If we say no to a common pot, there's still the same options, right? The common pot is just, are we using that or not? First question, right? For the residuary, are we using the common pot or not? Remember, the common pot doesn't have to be for children. But that's the option that Wealth Counsel gives you. You could customize your common pot to be for nieces and nephews, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, held together for a common interest of this class of beneficiaries, okay? So whether or not we have a common pot, the following options could happen. Jack, Colin, and Juliet could inherit outright as long as they are over the age of 18, meaning that they just get checks written out to their name, pretty much. They are in control. 1/3 to Jack, 1/3 to Colin, 1/3 to Juliet, outright, okay? They could also inherit in trust. In Wealth Counsel, you're going to design these as general needs trusts, either to last for a lifetime or to last over a period of stated ages. So we call that an ages and stages trust, but it's really just a general needs trust with rights of withdrawal, right? So I made our things different colors here. So we have Jack, Colin, and Juliet. And we're used to calling these marketing term lifetime asset protection trusts because they will last over Jack, Colin, and Juliet's life with somebody else in charge, which is the successor trustee. We don't know who that is in charge. And that person can get the money out for each of the children. And the money inside the trust stays protected from creditors, lawsuits, divorce, etc. Lifetime asset protection. Now, if it were ages and stages, there would be withdrawal rights. So Jack, Colin, and Juliet would have these certain withdrawal rights. They can withdraw certain percentages of the trust, like 25% at age 25, increased by another 25% at age 35, and all at age 40. That means we've given Jack, Colin, and Juliet the right to demand from the trustee 25% of trust income and principal. It's no longer in the trustee's discretion. They have to give it to them when they hit age 25 if demanded by Jack, Colin, and Juliet. Same thing at 35. This demand would increase by 25%, bringing it to 50%. And at 40, they could say to the trustee, I want all the money outright in my name. Ages and Stages Lifetime Asset Protection, both are called a general needs trust in Wealth Counsel, and that's how you design it. Now, final ways we didn't talk about yet is a special or supplemental needs trust, and that's what we're going to go over today, special or supplemental needs. So if Jack, Colin, or Juliet had some sort of different need, whether it is a disability or they're differently abled, or for whatever reason, they might rely on needs-based government assistance. Needs-based government assistance. That means it's means tested. So needs tested. So basically, do you have a monetary need to be able to get, for example, Medicaid, right? So healthcare, food stamps, maybe programs, government-run programs, like can you get into a housing program, right? So sometimes if either of these or all of these children had some sort of different need where they would need to rely on a means-tested, needs-tested, government-based, it's means-tested, government-based, do you have the means? Government-based assistance. If there's a chance, they would have to do that, or they wouldn't be able to manage their money, right? If Juliet got $150,000 inheritance, it could disqualify her from getting all of this over here, from getting the needs-based government assistance. So instead, we're holding it in a trust, still with somebody else in charge, but this trust is designed and looks a little different, okay? And finally, all three of them don't have to inherit the same way. Juliet might have a special needs trust, Colin might have a lifetime asset protection trust, and Jack might be inheriting his money outright with himself in charge, right? So he's not having anything in trust. His money's going outright and unprotected. So all three of them could be inheriting differently, okay? So that'll look different in Wealth Counsel as well. So I'm going to stop and we're going to go over to Wealth Counsel to again explore residuary options. So stop my share.